Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. An interesting idea occurred to me. I felt like saying a few words about it. When I was young, very young, like in grade 1, I remember there was this game I would play in the yard with others. It was called tag. And pretty much you hit someone and tag, they were it. And they had to run and hit someone and everybody else had to run, and it was that kind of relationship. Now, I wondered about this idea of tag, not between people. I wondered about first how light could be an echo, how sound can be an echo of light in a manner of speech. When the person who would get tagged, when they would play tag, that person who would get tagged, they would run after everything and everything would run away. Do you know? So there was first just the world, and there was space, world, light. These three factors. Due to light constantly hitting the earth and there being visibility and invisibility, there being light and there being day, I feel that set the genetics in motion. Without light, it's as if, like, what would stuff move towards? You look at a tree, it moves up. You could totally see that on a cellular level, the cells will respond to the phenomenology of light on the surface of the earth. So I feel it's really poetic that there was light, there was a world, and after a very long time, that light is now entering biological eyes, and through the human being is becoming sound. That means we are translating light into sound, and then that sound is our name, our story, the words you speak, and whatnot. But all words, they point to worlds. And worlds at their core are just images of being. We can even say all doership, any sort of activity of doing something, all doership could be just being. It could be that doing something in a place where the world is being is the illusion or an additional world. It could be that if nobody moved, there is a state of being where that is reality. And then when we move, it's as if we simulate in this reality. Now, what's interesting is light enters our eyes and the senses, pretty much all senses, sensory perception, not just even light, but okay, let me say it like this. It's one of the biggest mysteries, I would say, whether the eyes came first or the ears. I feel there had to be eyes. The eyes are like, you know what it is? It's like, imagine like a seed planted in soil, and the seed needs to sprout. It needs to lift beyond the soil. So light is pulling evolutionary design of eyeball. from like, an inanimate world. This idea may be a bit too soon of me sharing it here at this point in the talk, but I've had moments where I have thought of an advanced human civilization. I've also looked online. I've also Googled it. I've Googled an advanced civilization, guys. My own talks come up. It's oh man. I saw this idea, and there's something called the Kardashev scale. In it, a type 2 civilization is an idea of a human civilization that harnesses the power of its solar system. So first we attain mastery of Earth, then we attain mastery of solar system, then galaxy. Now, to attain mastery of solar system means to attain mastery over our star, the star of our planet, solar system. So I thought, in a sci-fi way, what if the future gets so advanced that you can use the sun as a broadcasting system? That means imagine we became such an advanced civilization that we were like, what's the fastest way to populate the galaxy? I mean, excuse me, the solar system. Or let's say the galaxy or whatever. I'm just saying, like, we could totally use a sun as a broadcasting system of the potential of human life. That means what makes sense more? Imagine us starting from one point in the cosmos and trying to overpopulate the whole cosmos. You know, it's like we shouldn't think that an overpopulated planet is a problem. The whole purpose of human continuity is so that we overpopulate everything. You know, we're technically like cosmic ants. So there could be a potential that light is activating intelligence. Light is one part of the equation, and it could be that any planet with light, and of course we treat light as like the smallest energy carrier system. So when light hits an object and hits your eyes, it is carrying information, you know. And so, or the absence of information even. So, light hits an object, it enters our eyes, brain activity, neural activity, ta-da, image. You know, we get image, we see reality. So light becomes image. Now here's the mystery part. We are perceiving an image before we are an image to ourselves. That means in all sort of ideological human calculation, from the void form was accepted. There had to be one thing meaningless. It's like, I can't tell, I don't know how to tell you, but it's like the center of the circle is required for all the degrees of perception, but the center of the circle doesn't have a degree. Or it's all of the degrees, you see? Now, light entered the eyes of a creature. This creature turned this light into sound and systems of correlation and symbology. It's like, what way to go, human being, overworking. The human being was so genius, it took light and sound and made a world with it. It's as if like a question comes, what is life doing? And it's like, it's correlating sound and light together, either accurately or inaccurately. And it's fascinating, we can say, this could be a bit play on words, but I could say uh, sound is a reflection of light, and light is an echo. Light is an echo of sound. Like, I could try to attempt to approach it that way. Light can be said to, at least, that's what I'm saying. Light can have, light could hold within it animate instructions for potential, for inanimate particles. That means it's like the light was hitting the same point long enough for it to change. Imagine the most basic cells, when the sun coming out, they're pulling themselves towards the sun, pulling themselves out. It's strange. It's as if light is pulling uh, life upwards, and gravity before Albert Einstein's space-time was pulling us downwards. was the planet was pulling us to its center. So one can even say, like, all of this light has entered all the eyes of all of these human beings so far. All human beings so far that have lived. And this light, the best thing it could turn was into sound. Sound or movement. Like the movement of the body or for the person to communicate. And sometimes it kind of shocks me because I'm thinking if there was no light, but there was creaturehood, what kind of a confusing world would that be? And imagine if somehow some person figuring out fire, okay, somehow, I don't know. Imagine a pure dark world and you find fire, and for that person who finds fire in a completely dark world is like pretty much like the first god, you know? The first definer of meaning to the dark room. Or another way of saying the creator of the value of the dark room. Right now, human beings, we can move our bodies, uh, we could move our minds as voices. You know what it is? It's like the body inhales oxygen, exhales CO2. The mind inhales light, exhales sound. But it could be also the mystery that sound was there before light. These two have been always fighting to be first. We can say light and sound are jealous, are jealous. Sound is trying to be faster than light. Light is trying to be as formed as sound. And really, without light and sound, we can't really see the potential of the human being. So much of life is just dependent on these two. That means light and sound is the human. Sound is all it can do. It can make noise and it can move. It's like we're not like X-Men, Cyclops from the X-Men. We just, take off our glasses, light shines out of our eyes. Like, can you imagine going to the doctor's office? The doctor's like, take off your glasses, sir. And you're like, I better not. And you're like, do you have insurance on your building? And the doctor's like, yeah, why do you ask? You take off your glasses, the ceiling gets destroyed. I can tell you for 28 years, I've thought about life as primarily as a player in some sort of game. Now, the game was here before I was born. The world was here before the species was born. And so if one just wants to play the game of self or the game of world, they will see the infinite. Literally, there's endless games. You could think like this is the most important moment of your life, but then you think about, is this the most important moment for the cosmos? Probably not. you know? Sometimes I feel that it could be possible that extraterrestrials are passing by Earth and they're like, oh, look at these adorable creatures still being violent. They haven't realized everything is energy. Can you imagine? So let's say light and sound are playing cosmic tag. We see something, and what we see, let's say it, let's create a term, probabilizes. We see probabilities to it, okay? And then that probability is spoken. So light plus whatever we are equals sound with direction and speed. You know, it's like the light is hitting our eyes, and it's like, okay, now you are the light, you know? And all we can do is talk about light. It's like that's all human beings have been doing, really. If there was no sound, if there was no ability of speech, whatever way we would evolve, we would have no identity. So we can say the world needs light and the self needs sound. And it's kind of like, you know, it makes sense. It's like all of this creative phenomena of a universe. And imagine the light switch wasn't there. Imagine like endless artists making beautiful works of art, and then it's time for the exhibition, but there is no light and it's a dark room. Imagine there was an art gallery and you went to this art gallery and they just gave you a candle and you're like, what is this? Candle? Seriously? And they're like, yeah, you need a candle. And you go into the art gallery and you see it's completely dark and you have to go close to the artwork and then it illuminates and then it's revealed. But it could also be a fire hazard, so. A bunch of candles in a room filled with art is not maybe the best idea, too. When I try to consider ideological thought, it's like, I mean, check this out. Right now, my eyes are open. There's the light of the computer screen. Okay, this light allows me instantaneously to see world. So light allows self to know it's in a world. If there was no light, we couldn't tell maybe. You know, maybe it would just be a stumbling confusion again. So, so light is required to know that self and world are separate. Now, what happens is, if I was to close my eyes right now, I can still see, like, even though the white light of the computer screen is passing through my eyelids, but I could also, um, I could hold the image of the computer screen in my inner realms. Now that image, right now my eyes are closed, but I'm still looking at the computer screen. This inner realm is literally like light, the residue of light responded by an unknown witness as sound. So if I was to, like, let's say, a drone above my head, let's say, like a drone above my head looked at myself, I would say this human being has closed his eyes in the inner realms, sees the echo of image, the echo of light, or pretty much a light image, like the mouth is used to. Yeah, there's just a transition point from the inner image to sound. Earth, air, fire, water, ether. The inner witness is ether. Awareness, consciousness, that is ether. Then it is the relationship of the elements in the attention. You know, it's fascinating how the ancients actually saw 4 and 5 elements, yet they couldn't see light as the only element. My personal view on light, again, just to add more detail to what I was saying earlier, that in light beings, I find there is geometrical information. And this geometrical information imprinted upon the human is an instruction. It's like a program. It's as if light is programming Earth to make sound. That means really what we're calling reality is our eyes. But we know we are a small part of this world. So we can never see reality. We have been acting as if we're all in reality. Everything is real, but we are just too small. I would say, rather than being an evolutionary animal, the future generations perhaps could leap. Perhaps towards a point of view where the eyes are rooted in the changeless. The funniest thing could happen. The future generations of humanity will no longer be human. They see way beyond the human framework. You know, we are just a reflector. When I consider it, I mean, sure, we treat it as if we are individual, we have free will, and we have all of this. Right now, there is a person here recording this podcast, but the destination where life intelligence can move is actually a sort of synchronization of meaning found in light. So we are giving what we see words, and then those words are structuring or allowing behavior. So light and then sound and then light again and then sound. Yeah. This constant known unknown, known unknown. It's the heartbeat of existence. Light, sound. Sound, let's say, like that is the inner realms to some degree. All words, all concepts, they're evoked. When I say the inner realms, the attention, change by the whim of an instant, you can change the context. You see, the mind is the only thing that, here, check this out. The body changes, and the way you know the body changes is because you are considering you're in the same world. Now, in your inner realms, if the world changes, there is no reference. The only thing that can consider a reference is unknown. That means, what do two dimensions that have nothing to do with one another have in common? The emptiness they're both standing in. So I would say, let's, I don't know, let's make it a sort of triangular relationship of light, one part of the puzzle. And then we have sound, another part of the puzzle. And then we have unknown witness. Now we think the light and sound lead to the unknown witness. The unknown witness and light lead to sound. The unknown witness and sound lead to light. So our body is based on light. Our mind is based on sound, and as for the finale, the soul is based on an unknown. This is the word that's missing. This is what the future generations are going to discover. In some of my earliest talks, I said something. I said that light and sound are going to give the marriage of light and sound, their children, is going to be the greatest technology humanity has ever known. And I was being, of course, poetic, but when I think about, of course, light and sound, these waves have different speeds. And light sometimes is seen as used to be seen as a particle wave. Now it's like, I think that view is being dismissed. We thought there were photons in the room, but the room was in the photon. In Vedic thought, we had this idea, at least in the Ribhu Gita, where it says that there's three states to life: the conscious waking state, the dream state, the deep sleep state. Deep sleep, no comment. Literally, there's nothing there. No awareness to body, no awareness to mind activity or the body's activity. In the dream state, there is an awareness to the mind's activity. In the conscious waking state, we feel we wake up from the dream, but that's an error. The mind's activity is in the background. It's still running in the same way. That means I don't feel we ever wake up from dreams. I feel that's just the unconscious. It's just there. It's just like this ocean of in all the impressions accumulated so far. So in these three states, in the Ribu Gita, there is a passage that discusses that there is a fourth state. This fourth state is again going to witness, the witness. I honestly have, just speaking about the triangles here, I would say, I feel there could be another, like the pyramids are actually a diamond shape, and the rest of it is underground. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the structure was designed to be like that? I don't know if that's the case, but it's probably not, but I think it would make sense to me. But anyways, where was I? Sound and light, playing tag. Light tags sound, sound tags light. We use sound to explain light. We use light to explain sound. You know, there's a lot of comedians in the world. I don't think many people notice the dictionary is a great source of comedic material. Simply because certain things are defined by their opposite, their reverse. It's as if like someone says they love you, and you're like, imagine the processing was instead of like saying they love you, you're double checking, okay, let me see in all the ways they don't hate me. You know, then I can be sure that rather than just, you know, trusting people sometimes. I guess the modern poet could say light is I. I just noticed that the word right and light are very close. In the right light. Maybe they created the term right and they're like, all right, let's put an L, and they realized light was taken, so somebody was like, screw it, let's just call it left. To pilot on to a different context, I mean, that's as much as I could say that light and sound are holding the mystery of the realm. And I feel that there is something about nature that we haven't realized yet. We should call this the thin ice effect. The thin ice effect in history. The thin ice effect, let's term this thin ice effect, let's call it that when a species actually is not uh, doing anything wrong or doesn't have even a legitimate reason to suffer, I would say it's like the thin ice effect is when a totally healthy civilization feels it's incapable, feels it's on thin ice. Right now, there's this psychology of despair. I would say this. That means if you looked at human beings and you asked them about how do you feel about your civilization and they did a survey, I mean, sure, you could be a person on a personal level, very happy, I don't know, watering plants, singing along throughout the day, you know, pretty much living a life that is like a movie. You could have movie happiness of life. But for how long? And that attitude towards the collective civilization, what is it? I would say to live means to be an actor in an elemental theater. But to be a mystic means you are done acting. It's the real event now. There's this poet named Attar. He says, oh, excuse me, not Attar. There's this poet named Omar Khayyam, also a mathematician. This poet says, be happy for this moment. This moment is your life. This very moment that I am, for example, giving this podcast is my life. You see? We feel we are on thin ice, but that is because individual fear has denied collective progress. If I could go back in time and tell my version of myself in childhood something about everything that I would go through, I would say try to be the underdog. Because let me tell you, so many things in life, I mean, of course, some things in life have to be directly engaged and then activated. Literally, you got to go on like a computer and press a password, and open your, like access your laptop. So, like, some things you got to directly engage for the dimension to activate and open. And some things if you just watch and have no expectation on, it's phenomenal. Nothing happens. That means this may sound strange, but let's say an angry person A is in the park, person B comes, an angry person comes to person A. And person A just stands there. Person B super angry, saying shenanigans, saying, next level cruelty or whatever. And person A just looks at the person as if like, are you done? As if like totally dismissed. Let me tell you, some things, some things you let happen, and some things, if you have no conception of, They can't happen. Now, a question can come that, okay, let's say reality is made from light and sound. Now we have imagination as a sort of sub reality, a sort of inner realm. So, how much of the inner realms is made from light and sound, and is it the echoes? Could imagination be like somebody's walking, let's say, past, like, I don't know, this arcade, and they hear Mario say "Mamma Mia," like something like that, you know? And then, as they just hear that, and then they begin to see, for example, like, I don't know, a red hat somewhere, you know? And it's as if the sound or they see a green hat. Let's say the person hears Mario in an arcade say "Mamma Mia." They're walking past the street, like in the street, they just hear that, and then they see a green hat that resembles Mario's brother Luigi's hat. And suddenly the person, their mind just sees Luigi there, and they don't know why. It's like, how did the inner realms appear? It was like a fragment of a sound from one moment, and then the fragment of a light from another moment. And suddenly they got linked in the inner realms. Like, sometimes it's interesting for me, as someone speaking to, like, I sometimes wonder, how are people hearing what I'm saying? For example, let's say if everybody on the planet heard what I was saying, right? There's 8 billion different people, 8 billion different DNAs, 8 billion different journeys of experience and ways that people have articulated their life. And so, what's fascinating really is that we have never been just one version of ourselves, but because when others look at us, they are seeing us through them, through themselves, through their experiences. This is why we have this whole thing where they're like, don't judge a book by its cover, you know? And believe it or not, when you go to a bookstore, that's all you can do. I mean, that's not all you can do, but you know what I mean? Like, we were unconscious, we were savage. We became conscious, we're still savage. Now, either we go into an unconscious gentleness, or we go towards a conscious gentleness. That means we start doing, like, I think this can actually help with violence overall in the world, where we start valuing, excuse me, where we start valuing the individual as big as the collective. That means, imagine you were a young kid in school. Okay, I mean, in third world countries, there is no such thing as bullying. Everything's a battlefield. But I would say in developed countries, it would be something where it's like, okay, I'll give you an example. Imagine Einstein is in a little kid at recess, and a bunch of kids have gone berserk or something, have no conscious sense of what when is enough or not, so they just start beating a child version of Albert Einstein. Imagine. Now imagine you are standing there as a little kid and you're even shocked of this whole thing happening. Suddenly a future self, your future self, appears out of nowhere and says, hey, defend that kid. You know, that's Albert Einstein. That kid being beat up is going to be a genius of the species or something. You know? In that moment, suddenly, if you were to listen to your future self as a kid in that playground, you would instantly run. Do you know? You would either shout or try to do something. You know? You would instantly run and stop it. You know, I'll tell you. Anyways, so it would be a situation where what was just another person became a great potential for the species. So I would say we would attain a lot if we started treating the species and the idea of even intelligence as something that intelligence is constant and it's there. It's just that there are inhibitions to it. There's barriers to it. We are oscillating between the known and the unknown. And so when we're done playing with the known, when we are done remembering the unknown, and when truth has been absorbed, then truth's work remains. That means after any idea of completion, what happens? Free will. Free will is universal completion. As if everything reached truth, but then truth wondered where else it could reach, and it entered the new. And what we are considering a changing world, the miracle of life, it is just novelty. You know what's interesting? We have treated light and sound as both illusions. It's as if we know there exists optical illusions, yet we still want to see it to believe it. I would say we should create a map and we should say light is where the world is starting from. Sound is where the self is starting from, your name, and then you respond and identify with that sound. So sound is where self is starting from, and we know that self and world are codependent. Now we know to the world there's an unknown, there's the rest of everything else that exists endlessly, like different galactic sectors and whatever. And then we have the self. And we know that there is something mysterious going on. That why did we evolve to be conscious of our pain? That means think about it this way, that for a very long time, 4.5 billion years in the making, and there were certain phases, let us say, that it was just this creature was stumbling into some sort of organization, evolutionary organization pattern. So it would be like this stumbling creature was unconscious of its own pain, but it then became conscious. And so what we could think is also pain is also an experience that has never been registered in conscious activity, whatever it is, whatever sensation, whatever view. So now let's think of there is this is gonna be a hilarious idea, but let's think of it. Let's say there's antimatter, so let us think of anti-light. And let us think of anti-sound, you know. Anti-sound, we have a word for it, but not in a scientific sense. Uh, Maybe in the future they're going to have an idea of scientific silence. Anti-sound means no movement. I want to say no movement. Let me see. I'm trying to say that the absence of light and the absence of sound are not just nothing. And we know one thing, so from this map of self, we know that when we look at the world up close, we find geometry. We look at the sounds that we make and the concepts that they are, and all concepts have a geometry. Everything that can be talked about pretty much has structure. The mystery of the self is left to choice. The mystery of the world is also left to choice. So it's like mastering the outer individual and the outer world, and then mastering the inner presence and the inner context, the inner world. And if truth was a cup filled to the brim, even truth can have truths. And if life is alive, that would be the most mind blowing thing, I think, for just any sort of community that is considered an inanimateness to cosmic activity. That means if we realize this world is alive, you know what it would mean? It would mean, like, think of it that you, like, you as a person, you can just visualize something random. It's like out of nowhere, you animate it in your inner realms. Let's say I say the word apple pie. You visualize an apple pie floating in the air in front of you, you know? So that visualization arose instantly. I feel the mind needs to have sound. The mind is like, it needs music to be alive. That music is some sort of relationship with rhythm as a human being. It could be, you could, I don't know, you could be like a Japanese ceramic master or something. And then you've been, you could say, like, it's like there isn't any music playing, but the way you're creating this, like, I don't know, really like incredibly complex vase. So as a Japanese ceramic master, you would suddenly like be in a rhythm. Your hands would move in a rhythm. It's as if, like, sometimes I feel emotions move the body. That when we actually decide, there is a release of emotion. There's some sort of emotional release when there's a decision. The decision may not be right or wrong, but at least if there is a decision, suddenly there is some sort of feedback. That means if the person gives their self like a sort of analysis, momentary analysis. A loss analysis, a logic of situation analysis. I gave a talk on this new concept. Marion says the mind is a dancer and your emotions are the dance floor. So, are you saying that my mind is breakdancing on my emotions right now? From a Buddhist view, Tibetan Buddhist view, uh, emotions are thoughts that have stuck around so long that they have become unpleasant. So it is a sort of relationship, I would say, with how much the world dwells. Think of it this way: your eyes see a world, and then this world echoes. Now, if the echo doesn't leave because your attention is on it, the echo of the event of the moment doesn't fade. So there's one approach where you try to hold on to everything and have control 24/7, where I think if you do that, you miss out. That this life actually, even though we are, because of the lack of safety, just survival safety of the creature, I would say there's a sort of distrust of other minds other than one's own. And this distrust can only go away if one actually gets rid of fear. A lot of violence and cruelty, it's because it's like the person wants to hit first before they get hit, but they don't realize subconsciously they're doing that. There was there's this incredible podcast, the Joe Rogan podcast. I watch it sometimes. There was this UFC fighter telling Joe Rogan this incredible story of how when he was young, he was bullied or something, you know. And then what happens? What happens is this guy grows up to be a UFC fighter and this successful, you know, well-paid UFC fighter. And one day he's driving back in his hometown and he sees a homeless man on the street. He gets out and he sees legit. It's the bully. It's this kid, you know, older than him that was bullying him when he was younger. He's become a homeless man or something, you know. And so there's a moment there where this guy, this UFC fighter, looks at him, and it's as if like he gives him like I don't know $100 or something, like he helps the guy out, and then he leaves. But for him, it was as if like, do you know nature sometimes? It's strange. It was a very strange moment, right? And the UFC fighter could forgive that guy. Even though it was an egotistical way, the guy was talking a bit in an egotistical way, as if like he felt like he had some sort of revenge or something. But I wouldn't. I would say when you see a human being, it doesn't matter who they are to you. If you see a human being that is living inefficiently, for how long can you tolerate it? And when I say inefficiently, not in a strict, defined efficiency, just in a more efficient probability to themselves of their own life. That means in any moment, the person, if you look at yourself from the past, you're most likely depressed. You know? Because you can't change the past and you suffer. Oh my God, why? Why did I do that? Why did I say that then? You know? But if you look at it from the future, I would say an emotion that could come could be anxiety, but it could also be like another phase to anxiety where it's just like, okay, I've lived this far, what else? You know, as if you're in a video game and you're like, okay, why is, like, what is the next leveling up to do here? You know? So, there, I'm kind of flying through various concepts here, but really, we are also alive once. That alone is enough to like wake up a person. A person needs, like all those people buying self-help books, oh my God, just for a moment, just pause and take in you're a mortal creature. And because things end, then that means now is the only time that all the inner realms have a chance to animate in the outer realms. Squirrels can't write books. Birds can't build skyscrapers, you know. But humans, humanity, the collective archetype, you know, it's going to be there before. Think of it this way. Let's say we are trying to envision 1,000 years from now, and let's say a glimpse of what could be 1,000 years from now is, I don't know. Let's say children are being named after constellations, and it's like there's no more. It's like everybody's preparing to become more and more of an interstellar civilization. So the cultural program also gets ready to go beyond the atmosphere. Now the cultural programs are really earthbound. So I would say, let's say in 1,000 years, we have become galactic beings. We have made some extraterrestrial friends, you know, in the neighborhood. We've gotten to know galactic neighborhood or something. So at that point, human beings are not going to be defining themselves by just Earth. It's going to be way beyond celestial, more sky-based archetypes. Now, before that, what would the progression be? Right now, we are solo human beings. Then we are aiming for, let's say, collective. So that would be from human to humanity. This is a hilarious word. I don't think it's been used yet, but let's call it planety. Like humanity, we have planety. So, so we go from individual human to collective humanity, the collective human archetype. And then this is gonna pioneer our ability for the cultural program to shift from all right, human beings have just become united, then everything in the planet is united. So I would say we would start behaving as if there were extraterrestrial members of civilization 1,000 years from now. That means imagine, like, I don't know, let's say a week from. I mean, that's so ridiculous, but like, let's say, I don't know, some point in the future, an alien just comes down on Earth, right? And so it's like, how interesting would it be if we had already prepared, if we had already um, become sensitive that we're not just uh, roaming meaningless atoms. You see, it's like, it is true, a brain had to emerge for this whole storytelling to be here. But this brain, it's like evolution made an object become a subject to itself. That's no little thing. And now this subject is wondering, what do I do while I'm this unknown subject in a known temporary object? So it's like a candle flame before the candle wax melts. It's like, what do I do here on the planet? Simultaneously as we are communicating in the world, in the universal sector, we are simultaneously being the communication of the universal sector. And I feel yogis and mystics were daring enough to try to wonder about this inseparability. And it would transcend so much, it would transcend all cultural programs. It's like to be a mystic is it's like kissing your civilization on the forehead, you know? and then leaving to go explore uncharted territory. To get to a position where we no longer just wear the sunglasses or just look through the human lens. Imagine extraterrestrials landed on Earth, the handshaking was done, and all of this, and so there was actually a discussion, let's say live Q&A. And so this alien looked at us and said, the alien said it's an advanced alien from an advanced enlightened civilization or whatever, with like this sort of very knowledgeable, let's say, aliens, okay? Now, we as human beings would have to tell them the situation. And so imagine these aliens were like, what do you human beings honestly think that you are? And so we would give them all our sciences, all our philosophies or whatever, but at the end we'd be like, we really don't know. That it's just this unknown movement, and that it is defining the context to its meaning. So we would say no clue. That's it. That would be the honest answer. That's how much knowledge the species knows. You know? We would look at the alien and be like, no, do you have a clue what you are? And the alien might say yes or no. Honestly, I consider it that if there was an extraterrestrial, let's say, physical invasion of the Earth, those would be the least advanced aliens. It's as if they've understood nothing about energy. They're just like different animal bodies, but from a different planetary system or something. So they are not advanced. They're not. It's as if there's certain secrets that it's like. Only when you are a giant, when you have found the smile of the giant of your universal memory, as if you're on the shoulder of a giant. Sometimes I honestly feel it's like, at least for me in my inner realms, the unknown is the evolution of knowledge. It's literally where knowledge has to go. And it's this endless movement towards the unknown. Think of it this way. How many different types of sciences, branches to science, will there be in the future? How many new inventions will there be? How many new modes of looking at this earth would there be? Imagine that the person was suffering one night and they're like, oh my God, life is so stressful. And then they suddenly thought about their ancestors back in the day and they're like, it's like my ancestors didn't have it this rough. And then they suddenly think, oh my God, the ancestors had to run in battlefields. There wasn't even sanitation and all that, like back in the day. So do you know? And then the person looks at it in the future. And they look at it in the future, and the future seems to be so beyond that the future could have its own problems in some sense. Much more problems that are so complex that the person can fathom. Do you know? So the suffering becomes like just, it's like, have you ever been embarrassed of your suffering? That for me has been the most enlightening experience. Where I felt I was suffering, then I got just embarrassed. What is this? How am I saying this is suffering? So, guys, I want to go into a quote tunnel of a poet named Omar Khayyam. I shared a quote from him earlier. He was born May 18, 1048, and passed away December 4, 1131. And these words are the echo of his mind's life on earth. Omar Khayyam says, a load of bread, a jug of wine, and thou. Omar Khayyam says, be happy for this moment. This moment is your life. I read that. Omar Khayyam says, a hair divides what is false and true. Omar Khayyam says, there was a door to which I found no key. There was the veil through which I might not see. Omar Khayyam said, myself when young did eagerly frequent doctor and saint, and heard great argument about it and about whatever more came out by the same door as in I went. Omar Khayyam says, drink, for you know not whence you came nor why. Drink, for you know not why you go nor where. Omar Khayyam says, you know, my friends, with what a brave carouse I made us. Yeah, this is unreadable. Omar Khayyam says, the thoughtful soul to solitude retires. Also the tired soul, guys. To be thoughtful probably takes a lot of thought, a lot of energy to be thoughtful. Omar Khayyam says, when I want to understand what is happening today, or try to decide what will happen tomorrow, I look back. Omar Khayyam says, the worldly hope men set their hearts upon turns ashes, or it prospers, and anon, like snow upon the desert's dusty face, lighting a little hour or two, is gone. Okay, I read that terribly, but the worldly hope men set their hearts upon turns ashes, or it prospers, and anon, like snow upon the desert's dusty face, lighting a little hour or two, is gone. So, what Omar Khayyam is saying, for example, uh, I'll take myself as an example. I'm someone here saying, hey, let's build an advanced civilization here, hey, hey. But, uh, but the thing is, Omar Khayyam is saying, as if like, if he was here right now, he would look at me and say, hey, Mr. Within, you want to build an advanced civilization for how long? That advanced civilization, it's as if 99.9% of species go extinct. That advanced civilization, all of this effort and honor and pride of the glory of the human species that we're living for, it's like when you look at it in regards to universal sense of time, it's nothing. So that technically leaves enlightenment for the mind is the only option. Right? So this means that because the world, it could be an illusion, and because it appears endless, so to continue in it could be an endless illusion. Therefore, if to go horizontally an endless illusion, perhaps the solution is to start looking at things vertically. So I would say that's the main division here. where some mystics are saying that you must leave this world. What are you doing here? And some mystics are like, hey, this world, we are here now at least. That means a person can wonder about truth, but while you're living right now to update what will be there for future generations is a sign of mindfulness. You know, that means all the religions and various ancient ideological systems, they talk about love, they preach love. They're like, God is love, truth is love, everything is love, you know? And somebody's like, even emptiness is love? And then they're like, yeah, emptiness is love too. But I would say it's as if, how can we say we love the world if we want to transcend it? You know? I would say this would be one of the biggest things. This is one of the most challenging things. Where should the individual focus on self enlightenment or collective enlightenment? That means after we get out of the individual hell and we get to the individual paradise, then from the individual paradise we notice the collective hell. Then the next task is to get the collective hell to the collective paradise. That's technically advanced civilization. That's another way of saying man built heaven on earth. Even though Omar Khayyam here says the flower that once has blown forever dies. It's as if I would say, we can even say, all right, let's say personal enlightenment is important, but there is no time. That's the issue. Maybe that's kind of the strategy of human beings, that as individual views on life integrate, the rhythm, like imagine a river. Imagine the more human efficiency and collectivity there is, the more people are chill and building something. Sound is how our eyes move without our eyes moving. Technically, it's information. That means whether you hear something, whether you see something, whether you taste something, I mean, all of that registers as information. Then it's like an information that's lining up in a landscape. So imagine there was a room and you were like a samurai, okay? A samurai with some special powers or something. Okay, so let's say you were this special samurai. You were like this super samurai, and you went into this room and you had such an intense and fierce presence that all the swords in the room that were on the ground, literally out of fear, stood up. Literally, they were all like, in a weird way, all the swords imagined were standing up, you know? And so the samurai picks up one of the swords, you know? And then it's like honors the sword and then begins training or something, you know? I would say, here's the thing. When I said earlier there was this triangle and light and sound were one piece, I would say when I said unknown witness, I could have just said attention there. Attention is the third part. So attention plus light plus sound equals human story of life's meaning. You know, and I think that's really one of the hardest things to do. To try to look at the one looking and realizing whatever you do, you can't access it. You can never get to the real self. You can remember you are it though. That means there's some people who climb mountains, and there's some people who, in the middle of climbing the mountain to try to go at the top, suddenly remember they are the mountain. They have been the bottom, been the end, and everything. Their eyes have had the vastness and authority of existential and experiential passage. You see, the world is being held by attention. Light and sound are holding us and we're holding it. As if, like, imagine you were falling in the void and suddenly two arms, two different hands grabbed your hands. One of them was light and one of them was sound. And these were your two, you can say, points of access to the living realm. And so now it's as if, like, I don't know, it's kind of like if you look at the body, like the stomach digests food, the mind is digesting uh, light and sound. It's as if our bodies require stability, but our minds are looking for wonder and shock and exploration and adventure and the unknown. And there's so many ways to look at life that I don't even know how people have ever been fighting over over beliefs. It's kind of like time. If you don't have a watch, you may forget what time it is. That means it is that temporary. And if we realize that all human beings and all thought, not all thought, but thought comes and goes, you know, that means I would say most people may think like all these ideas I'm saying are just from me, but in a strange way to me, it feels like I'm like sitting and imagine like like we can't, just like how we can't see Wi-Fi waves. Imagine in a subtler state, there's like a mini micro asteroid storm of various different thoughts, you know, and it's like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like if it was snowing and how like snow would hit the person. Sometimes I feel ideas are colliding with my attention. It's not necessarily that. It's just that anything you look at, by having an interconnected context, it connects to something else. So technically, knowledge is like you pull a string and then you see what the string is connected to, and then all the different things it's connected to, and then you notice that really all of like history and language are the most important things to study, really, to at least know. I would say history is the father of academia, and language is the study of language is like the mother of academia. These two are so crucial because one is giving the form and then the other is accepting the form, how it has been accepted, how it happened. Really, history is like a gardener's, uh, report on what's happened so far, what kind of flowers have, in some sense, appeared on the garden and then been dismissed, and then the next wave has come, next wave has come, next wave has come, and now you and even me, right now, we're alive in 2020. We're part of this whole kind of, wave of history, and it's how it has allowed us to have different relationship with language. Omar Khayyam says, living life tomorrow's fate. Though thou be wise, thou canst not tell nor yet surmise. Pass therefore not today in vain, for it will never come again. I'm going to um, kind of go into another quote tunnel, guys, this time of Ralph Waldo Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, what lies behind you and what lies in front of you pales in comparison to what lies inside of you. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, God enters by a private door into every individual. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, never lose an opportunity of seeing anything beautiful, for beauty is God's handwriting. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, science does not know its depth to imagination. Wow. No, the thing is, like, in an advanced civilization, no part of it has time to look down on the other parts, really. It's pretty much this modality of thinking is, do you want a weak civilization, or do you want an advanced and efficient civilization? That means, do we want to see these 8 billion human beings do something advanced, or do we want to see this constant clutter of self-proclaimed or ethnocentric, uh, Terence McKenna called it ethnocentric breastfeeding. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, the greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Yeah, that's pretty much all you can do when you fall or fail. Is like whenever you reach the bottom of any hierarchical system, the only place left really is to go up, you know? Ralph Waldo Emerson says every artist was first an amateur. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, let us be silent that we may hear the whispers of the gods. Can you imagine if Ralph Waldo Emerson was a librarian? There's some kids making noise, and he's like, shh, let us be silent, that we may hear the whispers of the gods. Keep quiet, kids. Excuse me. Ralph Waldo Emerson says the greatest gift is a portion of thyself. Emerson says the earth laughs and flowers. Emerson says a good indignation brings out all one's powers. Ralph Waldo Emerson says shallow men believe in luck. Strong men believe in cause and effect. Waldo Emerson says all mankind love a lover. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, I think we must get rid of slavery or we must get rid of freedom. Wow. Ralph Waldo Emerson says people are only see what they are prepared to see. Ralph Waldo Emerson says it is not length of life, but depth of life. Ralph Waldo Emerson says the years teach much, which the days never know. Emerson says all life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better. Ralph Waldo Emerson says the only way to have a friend is to be one. He doesn't mean like be one with the universe. Though we travel the world over to find the beautiful, we must carry it with us or we find it not. It is one of the beautiful compensations in this life that no one can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. Ralph Waldo Emerson says life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood. All is riddle, and the key to a riddle is another riddle. Write it on your heart that every day is the best day in the year. Ralph Waldo Emerson says as we grow old, the beauty steals inward. Ralph Waldo Emerson says we aim above the mark to hit the mark. And Ralph Waldo Emerson says we are always getting ready to live but never living. So that's it for the quote tunnel, guys. Really. Pretty much in both Omar Khayyam's way of thought and Ralph Waldo Emerson, it's like life is happening now. Its meaning is right now. All the joy, all the suffering you're seeing in it, it's happening now. You see, just in an experience of a moment of now. And light and sound, they were in the room before we were. Or at least light needed to be. You can say the mind or the brain is where light is turning to sound and sound is turning to light. I just thought of like somebody says, imagine a green lightsaber. So that those words that I said became an image of light. So sound became light. Now, if I was to see a lightsaber and say the word lightsaber, that would be light becoming sound. So pretty much, how does the light sound? You know, if we were to mesh these words like sound and light, just sound light, just one word. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. I'll be in the Discord server. I'm going to end the talk now. Really light and sound. Let me just double check what I said in the subtitle. Life is an example of light becoming sound. Yeah, explain that. Could sound be a reflection of light? So, I mean, sound and light both reflect as waves when we look at them as waves. Now, sound, we see it purely as a wave. We don't see it as a particle, but when sound hits the brain, its effect is ultimately a particle in the mind of the person, a position. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Blessings.